What's the best way to work out if you want to live a really long life? Watch this.
Our next caller is Marcus from Germany.
Marcus, what's happening? How can we help you?
Hi guys. Thanks for having me on the show today. Really thankful that you're taking the time to answer my question. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You got it,
Marcus.
So, as for my issue, I'm 35 years old. I'm quite fit and muscular, I would say. In a normal week, I'm doing resistance training like 4 to 5 days, power and yin yoga like 4 times, and recently upped my cardio up to 2 or 3 times a week for about 45 minutes. And actually, I'm pretty happy with my balancing my workout and my family life right now. I have 2 small kids, so it's you know about it. It's quite challenging to do it, but I think I found a good way. But since my dad passed away last year at the age of 65, I'm kind of overthinking a lot, and I'm trying to optimize everything with the goal of having a long and healthy life, of course. While of course also I want to keep my physique. And in the end, the ultimate goal is to spend as much healthy time with my kids and family and my wife as long as I can. So leaving things like nutrition, stress, and sleep out of the picture for now, how should one exercise to have a most possible long and healthy life? What is most crucial from your perspective?
Great question. First off, my condolences for the loss of your father. And I know what that can do when you lose somebody close. It can definitely cause you to analyze things, look at things, both your quality of life and also, you know, if you're doing things the right way. Was your father a smoker by any chance?
He actually he was in the wheelchair and he was smoking. Yes.
Yeah. So when it comes to longevity, it becomes a lot of what not to do, a little bit more than what you should do. Number one would be not to smoke. Don't smoke. The second thing would be to not overeat. And then the third thing would be to not be sedentary. Along those lines, when you're looking at your exercise routine and what you need to do, if you look at longevity from a longevity standpoint, it really becomes about being active appropriately and not overdoing it and not underdoing it. In other words, you want to kind of find this nice balance. Now, okay, what does this look like for me? Well, you feel good. You feel good. You've got good energy. You don't feel like you're overtrained. You don't have a lot of joint issues. You're doing the strength training aspect, you've got some cardiovascular component, and you've got your kind of meditative flexibility component. I think you're doing all 3 perfectly fine. Now, the only thing I would say is just try not to overdo it. In other words, try not to just add more and more onto your plate to where you're pushing your body to its limits. Always think in terms of balance. Do I feel better? Do I have more energy? Or am I exhausted? Am I tired? Am my workouts taking a lot out of me? And that can change depending on how busy your life is, how much sleep you're getting, and that kind of stuff. So that's really it when it comes to longevity. Now, and like I said, you have all the components in your exercise routine. So for someone like you who's doing everything, that would be the thing I'd look at, is like try not to overdo it. And then of course, don't overeat, don't smoke. And you're probably going to do just fine.
To be more specific on the training side, I actually think there's only one program that we have that I would tell a client of mine potentially to run that forever and just keep repeating that over. And I think that if the goal was just longevity and overall health, and that's MAPS Performance. I think the way we phase the 4 phases in there, because there's an endurance component in there, so you're going to get some cardiovascular. There's definitely strength. There's strength in different planes. There's rotational stuff that's mobility involved in there. There's mobility that's involved in there. That program is, in my opinion, the only program that we have that you could repeatedly run over, and it really encompasses everything for like long-term health, joint health, strength, cardiovascular health. I just think that is when you have a question like this, that's what comes to mind for me, is like I would run a routine like very similar to that, and that would be the core of what I would be doing for my body.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking along those same lines. Just personally, what I'm always considering is like where the deficits may lie. So if you get focused on a lot of lifts where you're doing a lot of deadlifts, you're doing a lot of sagittal plane type movement, that's something where I need to interrupt that. And so I need to consider more rotational moves. I need to consider more planes of motion going left to right, just to get that kind of stimulus so that way your body reacts appropriately. And 2, to Adam's point of this program really does take you through a lot of those different phases. So naturally, you also address power, which is something that people don't consider for longevity. To move fast is a skill you want to maintain and preserve. Just because anytime like we're going to face something where you have to react very quickly, and I might slip or something on the sidewalk, and how my body reacts is everything in terms of like whether I'm going to get injured or not. And so to just be able to train that, it doesn't have to be all the time, but it has to be a consideration that you're always kind of rotating all of these types of movements and focuses consistently. So it's just something like I think more people need to consider that, our body has to be able to be provided with that type of stimulus, so that way, you're strong in a lot more directions.
Yeah. Do you have a spiritual practice, Marcus?
What kind of spiritual practice? My only spiritual practice that I'm doing is yin yoga, like 2 or 3 times a week, just to calm my head and just to be to myself for a few minutes.
Yeah, because studies on this show that if you have a practice that allows you to step outside of yourself, so like meditation, prayer, religion, and view things from the outside, kind of like this 40,000 foot view, it makes a big difference because, like you're talking about in your case, one of the things you mentioned was overthinking it. And it's like, okay, now I'm going to get super healthy because somebody close to me passed away, but that stress and anxiety surrounding that can actually be detrimental to your health. And spiritual practices tend to help a lot with that. They provide meaning and purpose to some of these challenges that we have. And they do show in studies quite conclusively that those practices also contribute to longevity. Now, when it comes to exercise, you can exercise for performance, but at some point, if you're pushing performance, you are taking away from longevity. In other words, getting strong is good. Trying to be the strongest man in the world, now you're taking away from longevity, right? Having cardiovascular fitness is good. Trying to be the fastest marathon runner in the world, well, that starts to take away from longevity as well. So that's why I talk a lot about balance with the exercise.
Adapt.
Marcus, did you listen to the episode that we just did with Jason Phillips?
Actually, I did, yes.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
I think he does a really good job. It's been something that I've been repeating since I heard him say it. He has his
fitness triangle.
Yeah, his fitness triangle, and
it's like aesthetics, performance, longevity.
At the top is longevity. Then you have aesthetics, and then you have performance. And the further you move in any of those directions, the more you take away from the other ones, right? So just keeping that in mind as you were structuring your programming, but. Personally, for me, I really, that's what I love about performance is I just think we did such a good job of kind of hitting the broad stroke of everything that I'd want a client to incorporate for the rest of their life from a longevity perspective. And Sal is right. You could easily, because the program's called performance, you could start pushing the performance aspect of it so hard that you're trying to hit PRs, but that's not how I would approach that program. I'd go through that program and I'd go through it not with the idea of like, I need to be hitting PRs every time I do it, just the movements that we address in there and the things like with cardio and mobility, I think we hit everything that you need to for longevity in that program.
Sounds perfect. Resistance training is by far the number one fun of all of them. So I tend to overdo the resistance training and not do enough of the cardio, for example. So do you have some kind of recommendation what kind of cardio is the best for my case, or is it just whatever, everything is fine, just move?
Yeah, what's funny about like when Peter Attia talks about, because I know you mentioned in your question about the zone 5 and all that stuff. The longest living people in the world walk a lot every day. They walk a lot every single day. So probably the healthiest form of just activity is just to do a lot of walking. Now, cardiovascular stamina and endurance, that can be very different depending on what you're doing. Like you could have the kind of endurance that allows you to run 10 miles, or you could have the kind of endurance that allows you to do a 15-minute, high-intensity circuit in the gym, both of which will provide some value. And also, don't take this out of the equation. You just said something very important. It's what you enjoy. Is enjoying what you do, is that important to longevity? You better believe it. So like doing a workout that you hate for the rest of your life, well, first off, good luck trying to do that for the rest of your life. But let's just say you did. I think that would actually take away from longevity. Hating what you do all the time isn't very good for longevity. And studies will show there's a certain level of enjoyment that goes into longevity as well. So I do think you're overthinking it a little bit. Like if you like to strength train, there's nothing wrong with doing more strength training and less of the cardio stuff. You just don't want to be so cardiovascularly unfit that if you do more than 10 reps on a squat, you need to lay down on the ground for, for 30 minutes, right? You want to have enough cardiovascular fitness to where you can work out, essentially. But, going extreme in any other direction, I mean, it's not really necessary.
I really think you're really hitting everything I would want you to hit as a client right now. I think all the things that you're incorporating, you're really hitting everything. And I think Justin actually made such a good point is that what you're doing is perfect. And then I would just be having a regular check-in with myself. Am I strong? Could I go for a run for, a mile or two?
Do I feel good?
How do my joints feel? Yeah. How's my energy feel? Just checking in with yourself. And if you don't check one of those boxes, if you go like, you know what? My knees and hips have been really bothering me. Okay, well, I need to incorporate more mobility. Scale back maybe on some of my heavy lifting, include more mobility and focus more in that direction. Or maybe you're like, man, the other day I was playing with my kid and realized I was, running out of air just running up the hill with him a little bit. Maybe I need to include a little bit of cardio now. And so I think you have a really good foundation of what you're doing. I think that you're probably your Achilles heel is overthinking it and stressing yourself that way. I don't think you need to do that, but have regular check-ins with yourself on those aspects of health, the ability to rotate, the ability for your joints not to hurt, your ability to run for a mile, and if you can't answer yes to all of them, then okay, put a little focus in there. But if you can, then you're probably doing pretty damn good.
Sounds very promising. Looks like I'm on the right track.
You are, Marcus.
We're gonna send you Maps Performance. All right,
Doing
Marcus.
good, man.
It's amazing. Thanks a lot.
You got it, man. Thanks for calling.
Amazing. Thanks. Have a nice day.
You too, man.
This longevity conversation, people can get so carried. He wasn't, right? I don't think he was getting carried away. Boy, people can get so carried away with it.
Yeah.
Like I met somebody in our space who was so obsessed with longevity because studies will show that eating super low calories, right? That is better for longevity. And man, I looked at this guy and he did not look good. He looked like he was dying.
Eyes sunken.
Isn't that what what's his name? Mark whatever was all about? And then didn't he get kicked out of that? Or not kicked out, but he stopped doing that so much.
Mark Sisson?
Yes.
Really?
Wasn't he hardcore,
I don't know. It's a good question.
super low cal? Like
I think what you need to do is define life quality. Okay, define that and be honest about it. Like, don't just be like, hedonism, just party all the time. No, that's not really life quality. At some point, that's gonna be hell. But like, what's real life quality? Like, okay, I've got good sharpness. I'm a good partner to my wife. Play with my kids. I have enough strength and mobility to do what I want. I enjoy my workouts. I'm learning. I'm growing. And that, I believe, is what we should focus on more than like, how can I live till I'm 110 years old? Because that can sometimes get carried away.
Well, I just think that there's no real blueprint, for longevity. It's a check and balance situation.
Yeah.
Like there's always things that inevitably fall off, and to be able to know how to navigate, I think, is everything. To be able to adjust and to be able to put more emphasis in a certain direction. And so I just look at it as a revolving wheel, a constant. It's just something to always consider. If I'm so focused on strength, my joints are going to feel it. If to all those other points where if I'm playing with my kids, I get tired. I just have to always keep that top of mind. I can adjust and I can move in a direction that's going to benefit me for wherever I am, and then I have to, revisit that again.
And I think that's the point, to Sal's point too, is that you don't want to over stress about that. You just check in every once in a while. You're constantly just assessing and going like, oh, you know what? It's been a while since I've doing that. You don't need to stress about it every day. Like, oh, I'm not doing this. Oh, I'm not doing that. It's like there's always going to be something you're not doing enough of, right? Like it's inevitable.
Don't be neurotic about it.
Yeah. And so when it reveals itself in your life, then don't ignore it. Address it and then implement it, and then something else will reveal itself, and you just kind of ebb and flow like that. But I mean, do you guys agree? I really think that Maps Performance, of all the programs we have,
totally.
If you were to tell someone, if someone said, okay, I'm only going to follow one program for the rest of my life, which one is
just
it?
go through it over and over again?
Over and over again.
Yeah, it would be that one.
Because
it's got to be the most complete.
I train my clients very similar to the Maps.
I really think that it addresses the big rocks for somebody who is looking for just overall strength, health, longevity, mobility. I just think that.
And then again, the studies are what actually becomes most important is not necessarily what you're doing, but what you're not doing. And that's why I asked him if his dad was a smoker. At one point, I trained a lot of vascular surgeons and some cardiovascular.
And that was
surgeons.
always the commonality.
I asked them, I said,
Yeah.
what's the number one thing that everybody has in common? They're like, oh, 90% of my patients smoke.
I've heard the same
So like,
thing.
if you want to live longer, just don't smoke. That's the biggest thing you could possibly do.